What is going on, everyone? My final consecutive streaming day of the week. The hot weather is gone. We've got some interesting stuff to talk about this morning, including the Dragon's Dogma 2 early review scores are out and very positive, so that's something to look forward to. Plus, I've got an update on the possible next project that we'll be doing over on DSP Throwback. So stay tuned. All that and more on today's episode of the Level 1 Podcast. Alrighty, good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, the 20th of March, 2024. I'm DSP, and I welcome you here to the show, my final consecutive streaming day of the week, so I'm going to take a little bit of a break tomorrow. What a week it's been, right? If you remember, on the first streaming day of this week, I put my foot down. I made a huge announcement that I have to make a change, because if I don't, I'm going to be floundering, juggling so many games at once, I'll never make any progress in them, and they're almost all RPGs. So if you remember, this week was the week where I put my foot down and said, we are going to focus solely on either Baldur's Gate 3 or Like a Dragon Infinite Well. We've got to get through these games. But, of course, on Friday, I also had to play Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, which I had already bought. Yeah, we all know how that went. So... It's been a heck of a week. Pretty much only playing the same two games all week. Definitely has a different vibe than my usual schedule, where I'm usually juggling 3 or 4 games of different various types. Just the thing is, right now, everything's an RPG. Whether it's Baldur's Gate 3, Like a Dragon Infinite Well, or Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I was already playing, or Dragon's Dogma 2 coming out this Friday, everything is an RPG. And so, once again, yes, I'm pretty sure that saying RPG overload is a real thing is very warranted around now. You know, it's insane that all these RPGs have all come out within a short period of time. I'm trying to get through them all, but they're all so lengthy, it's almost impossible to make progress in any of them, right? So, it's been a heck of a week, but we made great progress in all of the games that I'm playing. What I would like to do today is get you caught up, in case you weren't around or not paying attention, on how we're doing on each game, and to let you know progress-wise how close we are to completion, because that is a big question for all of you, right? Well, let's talk about that, shall we? All right, let's quickly go game by game, and then we'll get into the schedule, and then I want to talk about Dragon's Dogma 2, and also DSP Throwback, a positive update today. In fact, we'll probably talk about the throwback stuff first, but anyway, so, this week was wild, right? Battlefront Collection is absolutely atrociously bad. Basically unplayable at this point. I actually heard it got a patch, like, overnight or yesterday. And some people are saying that it runs better now. So maybe at some point in the future, I will check it out again. Because, I mean, I own it. And those are great games. The originals are outstanding. It just absolutely sucks that, you know, we're in a situation where I can't even have a time to try it because I'm so busy with everything else trying to get caught up, right? So, all that being said, that's done for now. And so, we went full force into Baldur's Gate 3 and Like a Dragon Infinite Well. And so far, you know, today we're playing them again. I made major progress. I mean, I went from kind of being lingering and stuck into finishing major chunks of the plot lines of these games. You know, as of today, this week, we completed, let's think about this, because we did like 3 or 4 major things this week, right? We completed the Cazador quest line for Asterion, and he's literally out of the game now. We did the Balls Temple plot line for Orin, or with Orin, and took her out, and now we're going to see the fallout of that today, because we need to have a chance to do anything like loot or see what else is going on with that. We actually completed several different, like, side quest lines. Like, we have rescued Minsk, and now he's a party member that we've been using. And then we used that to resolve the Thieves Guild quest line, which we didn't even have. Like, we hadn't gone to the Thieves Guild And then we went there with Minsk, and it literally resolved like a bunch of plot lines without having done them, which is hilarious. It just like skipped them all, which is great. Because that now means that moving forward, we'll have them as allies, even though we technically didn't really, work on quest lines at all. It was kind of a 2-for-1 deal, right? In addition to that, like more stuff. I can't even technically remember all the stuff we did this week because we played Baldur's Gate so much. But we definitely went so far that basically now we're in position to do the endgame stuff. Like if you take a look at everything left, we have the Shadowheart and Lae'zel and Will companion missions. Those are the 3 we have left, okay? Then we have however I want to finish the game. Gortash is still in control of Baldur's Gate. Do we want to get headfirst and just attacking him? Which means we'd have to fight his robot guards, the Steel Watch. Or do we want to do the more elaborate way to do it, which is to break it to the Foundry and try to shut down the robots there? But there's also this Iron Throne dungeon. If you want my honest opinion on it, out of all the things that I'm doing in Act 3, this Iron Throne bullshit, I mean it too, it just sounds like a bunch of bullshit. So essentially what's going to happen is we're going to go on a submarine to some optional dungeon. The dungeon needs to be beaten in 6 turns. If you don't, the prisoners die. Like, the goal is to rescue prisoners and get them out of this prison. It plays apparently nothing like the rest of the game. It's a standalone thing, but it's important to the plot because one of the prisoners is really important, okay? That's really dumb. You're in Act 3. It's the end of the game. Just do the plots. Don't now be introducing time-consuming, annoyingly, difficult, different kinds of gameplay. This would be like you're playing Street Fighter in the arcades, right? And all of a sudden, right before the final boss, there's a stage where you have to play Tetris. Like, what is this? Why is this in my game? I don't understand. It's a fighting game. Well, guess what? Again, this game, constantly trying to throw curveballs at you. I mean, let's be honest. Most of these big fights I've been doing, all have been almost gimmick fights, right? The Cazador fight, the Orin fight yesterday. They all are gimmick fights where you have to find ways around these challenges that are presented to you instead of just doing a straightforward fight. And by the way, that's... Oh, by the way, I also forgot to mention the Raphael. We did the House of Hope this week. The whole House of Hope. And, fought Raphael, which is one of the big fights of the game and stuff like that. So there's more that we even did this week than I even mentioned. I'd forgotten that we had started with House of Hope. But anyway, the way I see it is, like, that's the thing. I'm kind of annoyed that the people are saying it's essential to do it, because if you don't do it, you basically get kind of not the best ending. And I'm like, yeah, but man, it sounds so annoying. And it sounds like it'll be a whole extra stream for this one stupid thing. And it sounds like there's potential to fail and have to reload and redo and reload and redo. So I don't know. I don't know, what to really focus on here. Today, we're definitely going to do the fallout of the Orin fight. I want to loot. I want to look around, obviously rescue Lae'zel, see what else is available to do. And then we got to make a decision, like, what should I do next? Okay? So, anyway, that's what we've been doing in Baldur's Gate 3. The good news is we made giant progress. And if I stay on pace, okay, which how much I'm actually doing this, likely I will finish the game within a week and a half, 2 weeks. Like, tops, I would say probably that first week of April, we're going to beat it, right? Like, today, after 3 hours, we'll probably end up doing a bunch of companion quests or whatever. And then probably we can head into that end game next week. And hopefully within a few streams, we can get to that final area. And the final, apparently from to understand, the finale of the game will take a couple streams. So we'll see. But good progress on that front, okay? In Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, we also have made giant progress this week. We went from Chapter 8, all right, which we had done several streams in. I think we had done like 3 streams in Chapter 8. This is when the game split and you go to Japan with Kiryu's party and Kiryu forms his own party. And I went from there, all right, all the way to Chapter 12 in only like 3 streams. Like, each stream, we're beating an entire chapter of the game. So the progress has been superb in that regard. But now what's happening, because I've been beating a whole chapter a stream, is, number one, the story is apparent that it's not as good as I thought it was going to be. I think that the story of the original Like a Dragon from a few years ago is much better than this one. I do feel like the story is way inferior in this regard, which is sad. I was hoping that the new one would have a better story. It has everything else better, like the gameplay elements, the graphics, The idea that there's 2 parties and multiple maps you can jump between, but the story ain't that good. It's kind of crappy near the end of the game here, and it really hasn't gotten much better. And I'm like, it's kind of disappointing. So, basically, the way I see it, all right, we could possibly beat like a dragon next week. However, there may be something that holds us up from doing this. From what I'm being told, once you get to like chapter 13/14, the end of the game has a big difficulty spike. Like right now, I'm around level 40-ish, my party, and the enemies are around level 40-ish, so we're doing all right. But from what's going to happen, apparently the game is going to all of a sudden have an artificial spike that's going to make it go to like 45, 50. And you're not going to be there yet. And this actually happened to my wife, Kat, as well. She says, yes, when you get to the end, all of a sudden, there's just this spike, and you have to kind of go grind. If you don't, you're not going to be able to fight these enemies. They're too high level. So there may be a stream or two where I have to go to one of the optional dungeons and go through and grind, and also not only do the dungeon for leveling, but to get components to upgrade weapons to like the final level and stuff like that so that we can hang in the end of the game. Now, there's many RPGs that have done this before, so I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to complain about that, but it is kind of annoying that, we have gotten this far, and now it's like we're in the home stretch, and it's like the game's going to kind of delay its ending because of this spike. I get what they're doing there because many RPGs have done this thing. Like, that's the final challenge of the game. It just sucks because us, timing-wise, schedule-wise, we are trying to complete games so we can move to the new games that are coming out, or to go back to lingering games, which we're going to address in a second. Don't worry. I know people are wondering, what's Final Fantasy VII doing? I'll talk about that in a second. And now we're kind of, now we can't finish this one as quick as we would have hoped because because of this difficulty spike. So we'll see what happens in the next week. But basically, we're playing again tonight. We're in chapter 12. I'm thinking we may actually finish chapter 13 tonight, or get into chapter 13, I should say, tonight. And then next week, the focus would be trying to finish it. And if we don't, maybe just a couple more streams and it'll be done. Anyway, so the way I see it, and I could be wrong, next week, we will absolutely get to the end of the game with both games. And then probably that first week of April, we could potentially beat both. And if that's the case, that's great, because then we can focus on other stuff, which is exactly what I'm trying to do. Okay? So let's hope for the best. Fingers crossed that everything goes well today in the streams that I do, because today it is Baldur's Gate and Like a Dragon Infinite Well, and that later on next week, because we are going to have one detour day on Friday, but that later on we focus on these games again, and after another 4 days of focusing on them, we're at the end of each and hopefully wrap them up. And then in early April, we can focus on the new games. Okay? So there we go. We'll see. It's funny because Nemesis T-Type just says Baldur's Gate 3 finale on Phil's birthday. Maybe. My birthday marathon is on April 6th. So it's 2 weeks from this coming Saturday, right? And basically, you're right. We may be in a situation where I finish the game on my birthday because it's so long. But then maybe not. It really depends on how things go. I don't know how long these final areas are going to be. Shadowheart, Lae'zel, Will. 3 optional endgame, plot lines that I want to do because they're companion quests, right? And then basically heading into the Gortash parts and then the finale. So how long does that take? Could it be 2-3 streams? Could it be another 7 streams? I don't know. You guys have played, not me. Okay, and I don't want to spoil. What I'm getting at is that I think there's something at the end of the game that no one's told me about, which is good. I don't want to be spoiled. But people have been kind of saying, the ending segment will take several hours. And I'm like, I wonder why. There's got to be something that we don't know about, right? Something's going to happen or something's going to be time-consuming, and I hope it's good. But I get that because all these plot lines are culminating, The Emperor wants you to do one thing. We already got rid of Raphael, so he's not a concern anymore, thankfully. But, you got Gale and Mithra, and they each want to do something themselves with this crown that's on the Elder Brain. And you might make a choice determining that. Do you want to destroy the crown? Do you want to keep the crown, give it to someone? But I definitely get the feeling like there's going to be a lot going on in this ending, that all these factors are going to come into play. And so maybe there's going to be extra fights. You know what I'm saying? Like for example, people have been alluding to the fact that the final fight of the game is not the hardest, that there actually is something much harder that comes right before. And I'm curious what that could be. Well, I guess we're not, I don't want to be spoiled. So we're going to find out together probably in the next week to 2 weeks. Anyway, yeah. So that's where we're at right now. Now you might say, well, what happened to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Well, as I said, it's on pause. There is absolutely no way we could be playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth right now. I have to finish these existing games first. Then once they're done, we can potentially bring back Rebirth into the mix. And it's funny because people were like, you realize that you're about to finish everything at Junon, and, well, not finish everything in Junon, but you finish all the side content in Junon, and then once you go into the plot there at Junon, it's like 8 straight hours of crazy fun narrative and interesting stuff. And I'm like, I believe you. Like, I remember in the original Final Fantasy VII in Junon, that's where you go undercover, right? And there's all this fun stuff going on there. And then right after that, there's some crazy plot developments and stuff like that. But how was I going to do that? Exactly. It wouldn't make sense. How was I going to make any progress in any game if I played that mixed with the others? I wouldn't have, right? So it has to be on hold for now, until I get a chance to bring it back to the fold, probably in a couple of weeks. All right. So that is where we're at with everything. All right. Now, today, it is more Baldur's Gate 3 and Like a Dragon. Let's see where we go. Tomorrow, I'm off from streaming, but during my off day, I'm going to spend some time with my wife. We're going to pre-download both Dragon's Dogma 2 and the Character Creator to my Xbox. And then we're going to create characters. I'm going to make my player character, and she's going to make a pawn for me in the creator. And those are going to be characters I'm going to use in my playthrough. Okay? And then that starts on Friday. And I'll be playing Dragon's Dogma 2 all day Friday. And don't worry, we're going to talk about it in a second. All the reviews are out saying the game is great, and we'll talk about them in a minute. So I'm excited to, start that playthrough all day long on Friday. But because we are in the midst of RPG overload, I can't keep playing Dragon's Dogma 2. We're going to play it all day Friday, and then it's going to go on hold while I finish Baldur's Gate 3 and Like a Dragon. Excuse me. When I finish those 2 games, then I will return back. And then I will play Dragon's Dogma 2 as a full-time daytime game, much like I'm doing now with Baldur's Gate 3. Okay? So, Friday all day, Dragon's Dogma 2, but then Saturday it's Baldur's Gate and Like a Dragon. Sunday is React Day. So on Sunday, it's going to be DSP versus the Internet Clip Show on DSP Reacts, and then it's going to be the conclusion of the retro replay of Heavy Rain on DSP Throwback. I'm excited for that because it's going to be the big ending. I hope a lot of people will come and join me for the ending of the game. And then we're going to have the poll to determine what's the next game on DSP Throwback. And the options will be more Dark Souls 1, because we've only done one stream of that so far. Bully, the original run from 2013. BioShock, the original run from 2009, one of my oldest playthroughs of all time. Or the original Mass Effect run, which I want to say the original Mass Effect run was also 2009, but it may have been 2010. But that's one of the ones that all the memes came out of. For example, Thugs on the Floor. One of the earliest memes about me on the internet came out of that playthrough. So those will be the options people will be voting on, and whatever wins the poll will be our next Retro React starting the week after. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week, all Baldur's Gate and Like a Dragon, with the hopes that we will finish them, or one of them, by the end of next week. That would be great. If I can at least wrap up one of the games by the end of next week, and essentially by the end of March, that would be ideal. I don't know if that's realistic or not, but we'll see. Okay? Then, essentially, all we're going to do, focus on Baldur's Gate 3 and Like a Dragon until they're done. Then Dragon's Dogma 2 comes in full time, and then we have a big decision to make. Do I bring back Final Fantasy VII, and do we balance Dragon's Dogma 2 and Final Fantasy VII as the 2 featured games? Do we want to bring in any more variety of games? Because that's only 2 games, and obviously people are going to want more than 2 more RPGs. So what other variety should we do, right? Should we bring in Alone in the Dark, a shorter, more suspenseful horror game? Should we consider Rise of the Ronin, the other game that comes out Friday that I'm skipping for now, but maybe you guys will want to see it? Should I do something completely different, right? There's a lot of options. Should we go back and try to play the Battlefront collection, because apparently they're patching it and making it better now, right? So, at the very least, the RPGs that we've been playing forever are going to end within the next 1 to 2 weeks. But basically, it looks like we're going right back into more RPGs, and there's not that much we can do about that, because that's what's out right now. Now, on my birthday, April 6th, we're doing a marathon. During that marathon, which is undetermined everything we'll be doing, but there's going to be food, there's going to be cake, there's going to be booze, and there's going to be a schedule update where for a whole hour or more during the marathon, I'm going to go through the entirety of the gaming landscape and schedule for the rest of the year, and I'm going to outline the dates of all the new games coming out and the ones I'm interested in, so that way we can pick which ones to play. Once we pick which ones you want to see me play, then what we can do is, after the calendar's kind of populated that way, we can look for gaps and say, oh, I see, in June, there's going to be a gap here. In July, there's like nothing, and then we can base other projects and games around that. Whether you want to see me do a special game playthrough, you want to see me do a long form react, you want to see me do something special on the Throwback channel, we can then do that once we get to the gaming schedule update. Okay, so that's going to be on my birthday, April 6th, and then from there we'll go from there and determine what comes next. Okay, so there you go. That's everything I'm thinking of schedule wise for the next couple of weeks, and hopefully once we're past that, then we can focus on all new games, which I want to focus on new games at this point. I really need these games to be ending, so I'm glad we're in the home stretch. Okay, before we get to the Dragon's Dogma 2 review scores, okay, the one thing I would like to talk about this morning, which is very good news and interesting news, I think you'll like this. So we are nearing the end of Red Dead Redemption on DSP Throwback. In fact, as of this morning, I believe the video released, and this is the one where you finally run into Dutch Vanderlyn, who is your gang leader from the actual plot of Red Dead Redemption 2, and you finally run into him, and now you're starting to chase him. And if I remember, this is moving fully into the end game. Like, now you're after him for the next several missions, and then there's a resolution, and then there's a big kind of event, and then there's an epilogue, and that's the end of the game. So I would predict that probably within 1 to 2 weeks, so again, probably by very early April, the Red Dead Redemption playthrough on DSP Throwback will be done. Okay? So then we got to say, what's the next project? And people have been talking about what the next project should be, like different various opinions on this. Okay? Now, originally the idea for DSP Throwback was to get playthroughs on the channel, all right, that are there for posterity purposes, meaning you can't really see them anywhere else on the internet for various reasons. Now, some of the playthroughs we're doing, Red Dead 1 and Final Fantasy 13, they both are not anywhere in their entirety on the internet because those channels were shut down. One was on a Final Fantasy channel, one was on a Rockstar channel, and they were both shut down by hackers. They hacked them years ago, and basically I lost control of them, and then they put up illegal footage, and the channels got shut down by YouTube. So those playthroughs were lost to time, but luckily I had the raw files saved. So that's exactly what we were doing, is uploading these for posterity, editing them into 30-minute clips instead of 10-minute clips, fixing the audio, upscaling the visuals, adding frames per second, doing all these improvements, thumbnails, titling, and now those playthroughs will be preserved for future audiences to watch, okay? So Red Dead's almost over. There's basically two major options in my mind of things that we can do next. One would be the other big forgotten lost playthrough, L.A. Noire, which, again, it was on that Rockstar-related channel and has been gone for many, many years. I did do a second run of L.A. Noire later on, but the original one has always been lost, okay? But as I have been doing these projects on the Throwback channel, there has been one common opinion, one, not demand, but definitely one desire by my audience. People keep bringing up my original Fallout 3 playthrough, stating that, hey, it's one of your earliest playthroughs you ever did. It's so old. The visuals are actually done with a camera that's not widescreen. It's not even HD, and it's pointed at an HD TV, so it's 480p video, crooked, skewed to fit a widescreen TV into the 4:3 aspect ratio shot, okay? The audio is atrociously bad, the visuals are bad, but people love this epic playthrough because, again, it's one of my earliest full playthroughs I ever did. That was the playthrough where I got drunk half the time and I was lost in the sewers. I was murdering entire towns. It's epic. Like, people remember it from back in the day as, wow, one of the wildest kind of video game playthroughs to be put on YouTube. And people love it for that reason. However, there's a couple problems with this playthrough in the current day. Number one, it definitely doesn't really hold up, being that it's such a bad quality with the visuals and the audio and everything. It's hard to watch today, like back in the day, 15 years ago, people didn't really care. But now you've been watching HD quality, for how long, and it looks terrible, okay? Number two, in that playthrough, originally, I used a lot of the radio on the Pip-Boy, and the radio plays a lot of old-timey music. The problem with that is that music, since the game has come out, has been completely claimed and or blocked. There's just a ridiculous amount of copyright issues with that soundtrack on YouTube. In fact, I tested this. I went and searched for Fallout 3 on my DSPGaming channel from my second run when I actually did have some of the music on. Within the first 12 parts, 7 of them had copyright issues. Okay? That's more than half. And that's only in the first few parts. Okay? The original run, I had the music on like all the time, I think. So there's very much potential that that run in many countries cannot be watched. It might be muted. There's actual parts that I think are muted. And therefore completely unwatchable. So here's the thing. If people really want Fallout 3, which they've been asking for, them and saying we would love to see Fallout 3, you know, restored, made to look better, made to run better, but also be viewable, because that's the problem. You try to watch that original Fallout 3 playthrough, and a lot of the parts have big issues with them. It's doable. The thing is, though, it's a lot of work. Meaning, to take those videos and imagine, instead of it being 4:3 crushed, to actually change the aspect ratio to widescreen, and to have these programs that we've been using for Final Fantasy 13 and Red Dead to rescale it, make it full HD like it was meant to be, to actually make the visuals look better and the proper aspect ratio and not skewed to the side. It's doable. It actually is doable. It's just work, but it's doable, okay? There's programs you can use to scrub music. And again, it's doable that we could run those videos through these levels of editing, all right, to get that to happen. It's just work, all right? And I guess the question is, how much demand is there for someone to see the Fallout 3 playthrough in this manner? So to clarify how it would be, number one, it wouldn't be 4:3 aspect ratio, 480p. It would be brought to a full HD widescreen aspect ratio. The graphics would be upscaled. I don't know how good they're going to look because it's from fuzzy 480p, but they would be upscaled to try to look better. The audio would be scrubbed, meaning, first of all, you'd be able to hear me better, but also we'd try to get all the music out of there so that doesn't cause problems, and you can actually watch the playthrough without blocking, muting, and stuff like that. All those parts would then be put into 30-minute segments. They would be edited together, titled appropriately, where each part would have a description of what's going on in that part first. It would have a thumbnail, right, which the originals don't even have, and put into a more modernized, proper playlist, okay? That's a lot of improvements. I mean, aspect ratio, you know, resolution, frame rate, audio for you know, hearing it sounds better, clarity, but also taking out the music, and then the thumbnail, the titling, that's like 7 or 8 improvements to each video, right? We looked into it. And the original Fallout 3 playthrough is about 22 hours long. Okay? Now, that does not include me going back to do optional side content, which I did. That was another 19 hours. So I played almost as long doing the side content I had missed in the first run as I did in the first run. But if we're just talking the original playthrough, all right, it's around 22 hours long. That's around the length of Red Dead Redemption. So knowing now, because we started Red Dead Redemption back in January, we would know that if we started that and balanced it with other stuff, and we're alternating 2 playthroughs, that would mean we could start in like April, and it would probably end in like June-ish. You know, it takes about 2 months or something like that. So it could work. But the question is that what people want? Because in my mind, there's only 2 options as the next project on DSP Throwback. It's either Fallout 3 or LA Noire. Because LA Noire, you can't watch anywhere right now. Fallout 3, you can. It's just really bad quality. So either one, I feel, for posterity purposes, is a great idea. But I guess it's just a matter of, you know, what do you want first, demand-wise? Because easily what we could do is, once Final Fantasy 13 finishes, which is around 2/3 of the way through now, probably another month to finish it, then we could do the other one too. And then we could have those 2 balanced on the channel, right? So I guess that's the question. The other thing is, people have been saying, oh, for your next Retro React, would you react to Fallout 3? That's the thing, I can't. Like, I literally can't. If we play back those videos, they're going to get muted, claimed, and screwed up because of the music. So that's why, if you ever wanted me to go back and react to Fallout 3, I could, but we have to do the scrub first. We have to actually get these videos scrubbed and the raw ones live on the channel, and then I can go and watch them back, because those will be available to watch and not have issues. One of the big problems that happens with YouTube is if you're reacting to something and YouTube detects that as copywritten content, they actually block your stream. And we know this from the last year that I've been doing the DSP versus the internet show on DSP React, it sucks. It's not like, oh, your stream's been claimed. It's, oh, your stream's getting shut down now. It's like, what? And then you have to wait like 3-4 minutes for YouTube to detect that you've moved on and you're not watching that content anymore. So imagine me trying to do a react to Fallout 3, and immediately it detects music, and now the whole stream's done. Or I can't do anything. I can't continue. So that's what I mean. If you guys ever want me to do a react to Fallout 3, we have to scrub the playthrough first anyway. Okay? So, I'd like your feedback on this. Does this sound good? We're going to be talking more and more about this soon because, again, like I said, another couple of weeks probably, Red Dead 1 will be finishing and we'll need to come to a determination of which playthrough you guys want to see first. Likely, we'll put it to a poll. Like, for example, this Sunday night when we finish Heavy Rain, I'm going to make a poll on the channel for the next playthrough. Well, probably around that, the next week, I'll put a poll up and say, hey, which do you want? L.A. Noire or Fallout 3? And people will determine, what order they want to do from there. So, I guess we'll see, all right? So that's what's going on with that. And I think that's great news. Like, I had no idea that we would be able to take those original Fallout 3 videos and actually make them widescreen. Like, I didn't even know that was possible. And so to know that we can actually make it HD, widescreen, try to do something with the frame rate, scrub the audio, so, that's amazing improvements. I actually could not wait to watch back my own playthrough of the game with those improvements, So that's really cool. All right, so guys, that's everything I got there. Now it is time to talk about Dragon's Dogma 2, for which now finally the reviews are out. All right, and the good news is reviews are good. But if you could bear with me for 1 second, I'll be right back. And just like that, I'm back. This new pause feature on OBS that we've discovered. Thank you, OP Boone, who in the suggestion box told me about this pause feature. I'm using this like literally every day now. It's so useful. So for you guys who watch on demand, I'm sure you're enjoying this feature because you don't have to see an empty chair. And for those on stream, they see the empty chair, and we made an empty chair emote for them to use, and they do it. They use it in the chat when I get up, so it's great. All right. So anyway, let's continue on with the show. What I'd like to talk about now is the reviews have come out for Dragon's Dogma 2. All right. I'm just going to read some of them. You ready for this? They just came out this morning. The Sixth Axis, 10 out of 10. RPG Site, 10 out of 10. Gaming Bolt, 10 out of 10. Eurogamer, 5 out of 5. VG247, 5 out of 5. PSU, 9.5. Gaming Trend, 95. Windows Central, 4.5 out of 5. Game Informer, 9. God is a Geek, 9. GameSpot, 9. IGN, 8. So, those are just some of the, there's tons of review scores that have come out. Aggregate, basically it's getting in the 90s on PC and high 80s on console. And you might say, wait, what's the difference? Graphics. Basically on PC, this thing can run like uncapped frame rate, depending on your rig. On console, listen to this. This is very bizarre because I never would have expected this one, okay? Dragon's Dogma 2 runs better on the Xbox Series X than it does on the PS5. On PS5, it essentially runs around 30 frames per second. On the Xbox Series X, Dragon's Dogma 2 runs at 40 frames per second, but it fluctuates. So it actually runs better on Xbox, which is almost never the case, correct? It's almost always in favor of the PlayStation 5 this console gen when it has a cross-gen or a cross-platform game like this. So, weird, right? Very weird. So I'd like to just read you guys a couple quick review summaries. All right. This one's from RPG Site. More than just a retread of the 2012 original, Dragon's Dogma 2 fulfills and expands upon the promise of its predecessor, culminating in what can only be described as a generational RPG. Whoa. That sounds like high praise. From Colt Eastwood. Dragon's Dogma 2 on Xbox Series X runs an average of 6 frames higher than PS5, stays closer to 40 frames in combat. PS5, it's closer to 30 and sometimes goes under. I recommend getting it on PC if possible. Okay? This one's from Okami13. Dragon's Dogma 2 is my new game of the year. But it's March. I hate the people who do this. It's my game of the year. It's fucking March. right? Capcom delivered an absolute masterpiece, but performance issues at times can hurt an otherwise unforgettable experience. There you go. And then I actually found this tweet entertaining from Theo Crusader. He says, Dragon's Dogma 2 fanboys are posting the review scores and ignoring the fact that they're going to be playing it like a slideshow. So essentially, what they're saying is it's really, really, really good. It's long. It has a lot of content. They've improved upon almost everything in the original game, although they make it feel like a new experience. It doesn't feel like you're just playing Dragon's Dogma 1 all over again. They did add new things and improve upon a lot of things, but the bummer is the graphics just aren't as good as they could be. Like, people really feel like it should be at a better frame rate. And I'm going to be honest with you. Yes, it should be 60 frames. I still don't understand why. Why can't these game developers make their games 1080p 60 frames? And here's the thing. I think I know the answer. Okay? The answer is this. Because we pushed technology too far, too fast, and we rushed into 4K. That's the answer. Because all these games basically have to have, they have to have 4K resolution modes. And since they have to do that, they have to add enough detail and enough to make it 4K. So when they do that, now they're like, well, how do we make it 60 frames? Well, no one's expecting 60 frames at 4K, right? But now, because you put so much detail and shit into the game, now it's like an afterthought to try to get it to run better on the lower resolutions. Imagine if this generation, the only goal was 1080p 60 frames. You understand that if that was the actual focus this console generation, every game would be that. Literally every game would run 1080p 60 frames. The problem is we push technology where every TV is 4K, everyone wants 4K. All right, now have you seen the difference between 4K and 1080p? There's some difference, notably in movies. Movies probably take advantage of it more. In video games, when there's a lot of motion and everything, it's not that big of a difference. It's not, okay? And people who freak out about this, I demand 4K and everything. Basically, you've made these game devs rush forward at a point where they weren't really ready for that, in my opinion. From what I'm seeing, from the climate of the industry, from how is it we have these incredibly powerful boxes and we can't just boot a game at 60 frames yet? It doesn't even make fucking sense, right? Why? Because they put too much detail in them. Why? Because they needed that detail for 4K. It's stupid. It's stupid, especially when, have you even heard a single game dev say that they've really benefited from 4K? Have you heard one say that? Like, when people were saying, oh, we went from, standard definition to HD, or when we went from 720p to 1080p, people definitely saw the difference, correct? Like, you could see a big generational jump in the quality of games when that happened. Have you seen a generational jump since all games now can render in 4K? Have you seen any big differences? It's stupid. I mean, what's happened is, instead of them focusing on lighting, on better aliasing, and what do they call it, ray tracing, and the frame rate, they've now got to fuck around with adding enough details to make it be 4K first, and then try to make everything else work after the fact. It's really dumb. So this is the problem. They focus fidelity over frame rate. And when they do that, the entire industry suffers. 100%. Okay? 100%. I can tell you that basically, if we didn't have 4K resolution right now as a requirement, Dragon's Dogma 2 would probably be 60 frames per second on every format. But we skipped it. If you remember, like last gen, a lot of games started at 720p and then they jumped to 1080p. Some were variable resolution. And then all of a sudden, this gen, every game's 4K. That was the problem. The jump was too much. So this pisses me off, because I would love to have Dragon's Dogma 2 as a beautiful 60 frame RPG, and now we got to have this fluctuating hybrid game. For who? Who is the sales audience out there that if you announce that Dragon's Dogma 2 only rendered at 1080p, that they would say, we're panning the game, we're never playing it? What would it be, like 1,000 people? Whoop-de-fucking-do. Why are we catering to these people who are so demanding and picky, instead of just making something that everyone would benefit from, right from the ground level, So this basically pisses me off, because now people are going to say, oh, don't get Dragon's Dogma 2 because it runs under 60 frames on console. And that's a stupid mentality. If it really is as good as these reviewers are saying, and you're going to skip out on a game that's a potential Game of the Year contender simply because it doesn't run at a smooth 60 frames, that's pretty stupid. But a lot of people are like that. Like, a lot of people are so demanding that today they will not buy a game if it doesn't run at the best performance. You know what I'm saying? Dark Gaming says Baldur's Gate 3 is 30 frames. No. It runs at 60 frames for me, but it's hybrid. Like, a lot of the times it's 60 and then it chugs in parts, right? Especially in combat, or if you're in parts of the Baldur's Gate itself and there's a lot going on around you, then it dips. So it's a variable frame rate, but it aims for 60 and it hits it a lot of the time. What they're saying, Dragon's Dogma 2 never hits 60 on console. Like I said, on Xbox Series X, it hits around 40-ish, which is good, but you want more, right? So I'm happy to hear this news. I'm excited, and I really feel like now I made the right choice, because if you remember, this week was a big choice. Am I doing Rise of the Ronin or Dragon's Dogma 2? And I tried to take in your feedback, and that's great. Your feedback has been amazing because you led me, I think, to the right decision. Okay, but man, I'll be honest. I think that will be the one thing that we criticize is the graphics. If the game plays well, if the game has great combat mechanics, great RPG mechanics, and a huge open world, tons of fun stuff to do, and it chugs, it's going to be frustrating, right? So I think we made the right decision. Now, if you remember last week with Rise of the Ronin, we explored the early preview opinions, and the early preview opinions were kind of mixed. Basically, some people loved it. They said, oh, it's a great open world. It's basically a combination of Assassin's Creed and Sekiro with some Dark Souls elements, although it's not as hard because the game has a difficulty adjuster, so you can make it easier. It doesn't have to be ridiculously over-the-top difficult, okay? Some people loved it. Others basically said, it's okay, but basically once you get 3-4 hours into the game, the entire game feels kind of samey, and therefore it gets boring. I shouldn't be bored 3-4 hours into an open world game, and that's why it's not that good. So honestly, I think I made the right decision here. I hope the Dragon's Dogma 2 ends up being great. Remember, we're playing it all day Friday. And then after that, we have to wait. I have to finish Baldur's Gate, and we have to finish Like a Dragon, and then we're going heavily into Dragon's Dogma 2 as my major playthrough for a bit. I hope you guys understand why I have to do this. I cannot be playing 3-4 RPGs at once. We have to finish what we're doing first. So, fingers crossed for great progress today on our streams. And I'm excited to jump into Dragon's Dogma 2 with all of you on Friday. And again, some people were wondering, Phil, why are you doing the character creation off stream? Like, you always do your character creation on stream, but you said you're going to, tomorrow on your day off, you're going to make your character, and Kat's going to make a pawn for you. Like, why are you doing it that way? This is why, because we have only one day to focus on Dragon's Dogma 2, and then I've got to swap back to these games to finish them. So in that consideration, I don't want to waste an hour making characters when we only have 5 hours to play it anyway, you see? So that's why. I hope you understand. And I am excited. So please be here Friday. If you've been waiting for new games and you're waiting for the big new one, this is one of the big new ones right now. Please come by and hang out with me and enjoy the premiere of Baldur's Gate. Excuse me. Oh, no. I said the premiere of Baldur's Gate. The premiere of Dragon's Dogma 2 this Friday. I'm excited for it. I loved the original. Now, by the way, someone earlier today said they couldn't find the Dragon's Dogma playthroughs. Now, hold on. What I like to do live, because I'm here with you, is I'd like to take a quick look. So if I go to videos, and I literally just go to filter, Dragon's Dogma, okay? Wow, my review of it was June 2012. My original playthrough was 113 parts, so quite lengthy. That did not work. So I can't find the DLC, and I'm wondering why. Because I particularly remember when they released the DLC, okay? It's a whole giant optional dungeon. It's huge. And I remember playing it right before I went on like a trip, okay? But maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe that's the end of the original playthrough, and I never played the DLC. I can't remember. I really, really can't remember, and that's unfortunate. I wish I could remember exactly. I don't see the Dark Arisen DLC, so maybe I never played it. Maybe what I'm misremembering, okay, is the actual end of the game is a giant dungeon grind, right? So I don't think I ever played it. Now, all these years, I thought I actually had, and I guess I didn't. Because here's what I remember. I remember when I played Dragon's Dogma 1, okay? I liked it, but it was a game that if I didn't grind, it was going to be a big ordeal to do the playthrough. So while I was playing it, I would grind offline at night. I would actually like get drunk playing this game and grinding and leveling all my teammates up while I was doing something else. So I'd have like a show on another screen while I was grinding in this game. And I did it for a lot of the playthrough. And I remember at one point, and I had always thought that it was the DLC, but I guess I'm wrong, is that I knew that like there was a piece of content in it. Is that what it is? Cypress TV says you didn't play it. The original playthrough dragged on. I watched it earlier this year. I think what happened was I was under the impression that where I was in Dragon's Dogma 1 was the end of the game. And I had set aside like 1 to 2 nights to finish the game because I wanted to have the playthrough uploaded ahead of time because I was going to a convention. I was going to like an event. And I wanted to have that to be a big project for people to watch while I was at the event making more videos from the event, but it wouldn't be gameplay. So I really worked hard. Like I filmed a ridiculous amount of gameplay of the game in like 2 days, hoping to finish it, and I still didn't finish it. If I remember, like the end of the game was an insane, lengthy grind, and I was very pissed off at the end of the game. Now the thing is, somehow in my mind, over the years, I've turned that into that was the DLC. But I don't think it was. I don't think I ever played the Dark Arisen DLC. I think I just did the base game. I never did the expansion. And if I remember correctly, okay, if I remember correctly, that playthrough, when I started, it was doing well, but over time, people got tired of it. They basically said it was too long and too grindy. And even though I was grinding off camera to level and advance, people just got bored of it. So for me, it was kind of like I was making that final push to finish the game so I could just move on to other games, kind of similar to what I'm doing right now with RPG Overload, Baldur's Gate 3, and Like a Dragon. And I think that's what happened. I think that's exactly what happened. So I rushed to finish Dragon's Dogma 1. I didn't like the ending, right? Oh, is that what it is? Eternal Napalm says, when you beat the story of Dragon's Dogma, there's a huge dungeon grind that opens up as part of the base game, and it takes 10 hours. I think that's exactly what it is. I think that's exactly what it was, is I beat the story, but then there's this dungeon, and everyone's like, do the dungeon. So I went to do it thinking, oh, it's a few hours. It was like 10 hours. That's exactly what it is. Now we've pieced together the story. There you go. And thank you for helping me because, you know, trying to remember this stuff over a decade later, it's nearly impossible. It really is. Like, people ask me shit all the time. Oh, what about this? What about that? I don't remember. You know, for me, that's stuff that's so old, you know, I don't care about it. But for some people, it's really important, old shit, you know, and then they try to remember, and I don't know. I really don't know. Okay, so that's what it is the original playthrough had a story ending, but then a post-game dungeon, and I just wanted to do it, and everyone wanted to see it, but then basically people got bored with it, and I just tried to rush it and finish it, and I set aside 1 or 2 nights to do it, and I couldn't finish it before I went on the trip. Like, I tried really hard, and I don't think I finished it before I went on the trip, and so eventually I did finish it later, and then I reviewed the game. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but okay. That makes a lot more sense. So I never played the Dark Arisen DLC. which is a shame because I think I really liked the game. But again, what would happen back then, I was a slave to video views on YouTube. And that sucks. Let me tell you something. Back then, that really sucked for me because there were games that I liked, but then people wouldn't catch on and it wouldn't get views, and people would demand other games instead, and I would have to spend more time on the other games rather than the game that I liked more because I was a slave to video views. Remember, the only income I had back then was based on ad revenue, and the ads were based on viewership. You know, I had a contract with Machinima, my partner network, where I would get paid a flat rate per amount of views. So I had to bring in views. I had to play what people would watch. Today, it doesn't really matter that much, right? Today, most of my focus is on streaming and having you guys be engaging and supportive of the streams. And yes, I do get back-end income from memberships, from super chats, super stickers, super thanks, and from ad revenue. But for the most part, it's not a humongous deal if viewership goes down for a month or two because I'm not playing hot stuff. Like, for example, right now, my viewership is down on this channel, like a big way, too, like by like a fifth or something like that, because I'm just playing the same RPGs over and over, no new games or whatever. And so it's funny because when I play a new game like Battlefront, it did get more views than everything else that I was doing, but look how long that lasted because the game's a broken mess, right? So it's not much that I can really do in that regard, but it doesn't destroy my business if viewership goes down. As long as people are still coming by and engaging and supporting the streams, I'm okay. Back then, it was different. Back then, that was all I did was on-demand videos. So if the views went down, I actually got hurt by that, and I had to try to adjust and listen to what people wanted. And a lot of the times, I ended up stopping projects and things that I was enjoying to play more what people were asking for. I mean, particularly 2012, if you remember, do you guys remember 2012? That was the summer of GTA. That was the summer when I ended up playing a wild marathon of Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas back to back to back. And it took me a while. It took me like 2-3 months to get through them, like back to back like that. But it really drove me nuts because I didn't want to play that many GTA games back to back. But the views were insane on that playthrough, and people kind of demanded that I do it. So I really didn't have time to do anything else. And that was my whole summer, you know? Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but that's what happened with the original run. Now I'm reminiscing about it, which is nice to think about that. Okay, so guys, here's the deal. It's past noon already. I would prefer to not do suggestion box today, because every time that I do suggestion box, we end up getting wrapped up in so much discussion that then the show goes late. I would prefer to not have the podcast go late today, because I would like to actually get to on time start with Baldur's Gate. So normally what I would say at this time is, all right, guys, so this is a great opportunity for us to do shout-outs. Let's do shout-outs for contributions. Except I have 0 contributions so far today. 0. So I have nothing to shout out at all. All right. So what do you want to talk about? Let's just have a little bit of Q&A today. And go back and forth a little bit. And if we end the podcast earlier today, that's okay. I'm okay with that. So we can get into more Baldur's Gate. But let's see what happens. All right. So what would you guys like to talk about? Tag me in the chat. We'll do a little bit back and forth. Eternal Napalm says, if you switch to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I will tip you $150. All right. So when I start playing the game again, probably in a couple weeks' time, I'm expecting that tip. Thanks for offering that. I really appreciate that. We will switch in a couple weeks. And, you know, because you didn't say today. So, very nice. Thank you, Eternal Napalm. No. But, you know, I'm not going to switch to Final Fantasy VII now. The reason is I can't give the game enough time, you know, with these games. I really feel like the plan is this. Finish Baldur's Gate and Like a Dragon. Then we can have Dragon's Dogma 2 on day streams, Final Fantasy VII on night streams, and then we can get 1 or 2 more games for variety purposes, whether it's Alone in the Dark, whether it's Rise of the Ronin, whether it's another game that's come out recently and I skipped because I didn't want to play it in the time frame when I was doing these other games. Whether it's an older game, whether we bring Battlefront back into the mix, like maybe we check out Battlefront again and it runs well this time and we play that a bit, right? Like no matter what it is. Eventually, by the way, 2 big things, guys. Thing number 1, eventually we got to go back to Elden Ring. I got to finish this second run, not necessarily doing like Haligtree, but we definitely have to beat most of the upper right-hand region of the map so that we can get to the Moog Palace and do that. Or I also wanted to do the other stuff with the dragons and the magic stuff, which we were going to do, like fight the alien, and we didn't get to it yet. So we have to go back to Elden Ring at some point so we can prepare for the DLC in June. The other thing is, right now I'm taking a hiatus from fighting games on purpose. But eventually we're probably going to bring them back, and honestly, it's probably going to be either Street Fighter 6 or we get Fightcade set up, and I play on Fightcade classic fighting games, right? So, you know, one of those two can come in, and either one of those is variety, right? Like either option is big variety versus what I'm doing right now. So, oh my God, excuse me. Whew. Go Team Venture, thank you very much for the membership. I appreciate that. Eternal asks, how's my back doing these days? It's pretty good. I haven't really had any issues with my back recently. Every once in a while, I'll get something with, it's more my neck now. Like now that I'm getting older, my lower back doesn't give me many issues. My neck does. So I keep getting shooting pain or numbness through my shoulder here into my hand. About a few weeks ago, I was actually getting this numbness going down my left shoulder blade. And that's all my neck's fucked up. And there's nothing I can do about that. It's just, I can tell you, my spine, my neck is all fucked up. It's just genetics, I guess. I didn't do anything to cause it. It's just happening as I get older. So eventually I might have to go to a doctor for it and figure it out. But for now, what are you going to do? Right? I just got to deal with it. But the good news is it's not anything horrendous. It's not anything debilitating. It's just kind of annoying that sometimes I have pain or numbness. And I just got to deal with it for a few days till it kind of fixes itself or readjusts or whatever, right? It's very annoying. I received a $5 tip. This is our first tip of the day. From Oscar. Thank you, Oscar. He actually is going to talk about Alone in the Dark, which is excellent because I'd like to learn about this game. So let's get Oscar on the leaderboard and let's see what he has to say. He says, I'm currently playing Alone in the Dark. I'm liking a similarity to Alan Wake 2. It comes to switching from the real world and a supernatural world. The gunplay and exploring is fun. I have no doubt you would enjoy this if you start playing it. All right. Maybe that's what we should do. Maybe, all right, once we finish with Baldur's Gate 3 and Like a Dragon, we go fully into Dragon's Dogma 2. I also balance that with Alone in the Dark, and then we have Final Fantasy 7 as streams as well. That could be a good variety, actually, right? Two completely different styles of RPG and then a horror/action hybrid game. That could work, right? Darziak has done a super chat. Thank you, Darziak. Says, Eternal Napalm is secretly a big fan of Baldur's Gate 3. There you go. And the thing is, we all know that. We know that Eternal Napalm actually has written hundreds of hours of fan fictions. Yes. All kinds of, you know, exciting storylines like Astarion drinking the blood of Darkscale Phil. That happened instead of me preventing it. You know, the giant party that happened at the end of Act 1. You remember that? And how ridiculously I called it out. But basically, yes. My playthrough, but with no limitations. Yes. Baldur's Gate 3, unbridled. Now, he's been working on that. Okay. I don't know how we got here. Anyway. Okay, hold on. I received a $10 tip from 1 Minute Man. So hold on. Biggest tip so far today. Let's get that on the leaderboard and see what he has to say. You know it's going to be about Baldur's Gate 3, though. Okay. You were really lucky with your 25 deception roll yesterday. I'm surprised you chose deception. You're usually more successful with perception. No, you mean persuasion. Remember, you failed 2 deception rolls with Kithrak Voss in the Sheriff's Caress. Also, if you hadn't been so skittish in Sheriff's Caress, you could have talked to Corilla after talking to Boss. You practically brushed up against her. You couldn't get out of that place fast enough for some reason. I'm glad you found Sharon's skull. You almost stepped on it before you went back. You need to take the time to look around. Before you leave Baal's temple, you can speak to Orin's mother. She's nearby. Yeah, I heard there's a whole room in the temple that has lore that I should check out. And I kind of walked by it to get to the boss fight, which is fine. I wanted to do the boss before the stream ended. But, yeah, I probably will fully explore the Baal's temple now that we've beat the boss and there's no enemies, right? Let's go around and let's get the loot. Let's free Lae'zel. Let's check the rooms out. Let's do all that first. It's kind of the spoils of war, right? You beat the fight, now enjoy all the rewards. And then go there. Yeah, Corilla, I never noticed her. And people were saying that apparently she was in the plot several times. Dark Gaming says Corilla shows up a few times in the game to help you. She saves you if you get locked in prison by the goblins in Act 1. And again, that didn't happen. I freed myself or whatever. So, or I didn't get locked up. So that never happened. Like, I never met her at all, right? I literally never spoke with her once. So because of that, I didn't know she existed until we were in the House of Hope. And from reading all the logs in the House of Hope, it seemed like she was allied with Raphael, which makes her an enemy, which is why I said, fuck it, and I took her out first. She was also weak as shit, so I was like, oh, let's take her out right away, and then one less enemy, right? Smart thing to do. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing about Baldur's Gate 3, is you have all these moving parts at all times, right? And one person can play the game and stumble into something and another doesn't. There's been many times, actually, that during my run of Baldur's Gate 3, people have been like, oh, I didn't even know that. And I've played the game multiple times, and I didn't know that. That just happened with Minsk. Like, someone's like, oh, I played this game like 3 times. I never found Minsk. Where'd you find him? How'd you recruit him? He's a party member? See? So there you go. Let's see. Dark Gaming says she was at the Mason building in Act 2. She runs away. She was? I didn't see her there, and we were at the Mason building, remember? We checked out the whole Mason building, found out the history of the Masons building the Moonrise Tower, and then later on we ran into that Mason undead in the House of Hope. I didn't see her there. I didn't see her at the Mason building. Korg says, has playing Baldur's Gate 3 sparked your interest in D&D for any future games in the coming years? Would also recommend the new Lords of the Fallen down the road when it drops in price. Lords of the Fallen already has dropped massively in price. It's actually a super discount now. You can get it for like, I think it's like $30 or less. It did not do well. Just so you know, they were hoping it was going to like reinvigorate the franchise. It didn't sell that well. Probably because Liza P had just come out right before it and was so good that then in comparison, it kind of paled and didn't do that well. So that's why it's at such a big discount right now. Honestly, I don't think I'm going to be playing it at any point. I'm probably not interested. As for other D&D games, the thing is, I don't know anything about D&D at all outside of this, you know, or the movie I watched last year. Remember? What was that? It was Honor Among Thieves or something like that. I don't know what other games there even are. You know? I'll tell you this. This game, at least, it's an exception because how long it is and everything. Listen, I'm glad I played it. At the same time, I cannot play games this long often. This has to be like a once every few years kind of a deal. Do you understand me? I have to make this clear. I can't play like 140-hour games all the time. I will never finish them, and it's going to screw up my schedule and my business. That's literally what's happened. Baldur's Gate 3 has been a wild ride, but it has literally disrupted DSP Gaming, and I need to move on to other stuff, which is why I'm doing this big push to finish it. I can't play these games constantly. They will actually crush my business, so I can't. I have to be playing other games that are faster paced, more variety. I can't be investing this much time into one game. The interest falls off, you know? Oh, I'm not surprised to hear that. Bjorn Turok says, YouTube unsubscribed me from your channel and I thought you quit streaming, FYI. I don't know why you would think I quit streaming. I would tell you if I was going to quit. But being unsubscribed from the channel happens all the time. This has been a running thing for like 7-8 years, and YouTube ignores the problem and says it doesn't exist. But it totally does. You just got to, you know, check back every once in a while. Listen, I'm one of the most, or if not the most, consistent uploader for video games, right? You know that I'm going to be uploading video game content almost every day. There's one exception, and that's React Day, and of course my day off. But I'm uploading video game content tons. You know every day I'm streaming, right? If I'm not, I tell you why. So if all of a sudden you notice, where's Phil's content? It's not in my feed. It's because YouTube unsubscribed you. You know, come on back. Big Daddy Dubs did a super chat. He says, Divinity Original Sin 2 is as good as Baldur's Gate 3. Here's the thing. I played it. And I would say combat-wise, it's almost identical, right? Like, I think it was almost the same game in that regard, combat. But, number one, the graphics weren't nearly as good. Everything was done from a faraway perspective. There were very few close-ups in the game, correct? So it didn't look very cinematic. Number two, incredibly drawn out. You know, I played it for what, 60 plus hours? So if you look in perspective to Baldur's Gate 3, I basically played almost half of it, but not really. And at that point, everyone was bored. Unlike Baldur's Gate 3, people were not showing up. They were not engaging or supporting the playthrough. It was just being dead. And I was like, I can't keep playing this game when the playthrough is basically dead. You know, I gave it a shot. People wanted me to try it. I did it. It didn't work out. It is what it is. Not every game is going to work, right? Okay. I received another $10 tip. Also from 1 Minute Man. Hold on. He says, when you found Dribble's head yesterday, you said you don't have his torso, but you do. You found it in the caves that connect to the basement of the Open Hand Temple, part 92 at 2 minutes and 8 seconds. If you have all the body parts, you can finish the quest. With Asterion gone, you should learn the Taradot spell. The what the fuck? Tataratata. The Tataratat. Tataratat. The Tataratat spell. Tataratat. No need for thieves' tools and dice rolls. You can open the caravan strongbox and keep the iron flask and use it as a monster grenade in a tough fight, but throw it as far as possible. The monster fights anyone close to it. Tataratat. So my question is, if I have all of the dribble body parts now, okay, which I believe you, number one, where are they all? Because I don't know where they all are, you know, and number two, why didn't the journal say that? Because the journal had said I had every part, but it didn't mention the torso. It had acted like I didn't have it. Tataratat. But yeah, that's what I said. Remember I had said I thought that the torso was in the temple where you do the tribunal, right? That's what I think they said it was. I was pretty sure that I didn't get it, but I guess you're saying I did. Yeah. Okay. So landscapers are outside. Can you guys hear them? Let me check. You can't hear the landscapers anymore. This is excellent. You'll hear them when they come close. When they come close, I'm going to close the window. But the good news is, with these new microphone filters in place, you don't hear the landscapers anymore. It's a huge improvement. You know, you guys are really going to see the improvement when the air conditioner's in. You're not going to hear it. It's going to be so good to not have the ambient sound in the back all summer. I'm actually very happy about that. Okay. So thank you, 1 Minute Man, for the tip. Thank you guys for your few super chats here. What else would you guys like to talk about today? Orange says, Louis Rossman, an independent Apple repairman and YouTuber. He made an app that's called Gray J. It allows you to subscribe to people across multiple platforms. Feed works better than YouTube even. So you're saying there's a third-party app that you can subscribe to people, and basically it'll give you a feed of all their content. Like, let's say, for example, someone wanted my tweets and my videos on all three of my channels. They could do that, and it would give you all at once. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. Well, there's your recommendation right there if you're interested. Sussy, I don't even know what you're talking about. What you're saying doesn't make any sense. He says, do you have plans for when Baldur's Gate 3 ends? Sadly, anything you play gets support. I'm kind of worried about the future of the channel. What? You literally just said anything I play gets support. Huh? First of all, I make a tremendous amount of content, right? The podcast gets good support every day. The games are hit or miss depending on what game I'm playing, depending on what day it is. Definitely Baldur's Gate 3 gets consistent support. But the throwback streams have been getting great support, right? And I do those once a week every Sunday night. I think what it is, people want more variety. But for example, when I played the Battlefront Classic Collection, despite the fact the collection's atrociously bad, that stream got great support. And the videos actually got good views on YouTube. Not that it mattered because they're demonetized because the Star Wars music got claimed. But if you're trying to say no one's supporting anything but Baldur's Gate 3. That's completely false. Okay. David said, looking back, would it have made sense for you to go back and play more games that you missed in the Yakuza series before Infinite Wealth so it would be more meaningful? The only two I didn't play were the first two. I know the plot of 3. I played 4, 5, 6, 7. I played spin-off games like Gaiden, excuse me, and all of that. So I know mostly everything. And I think is I've kind of heard the story of Yakuza 1 and 2 over the years regardless. So it's not a huge loss that I never actually actively played them. So no, I don't think I needed to play every single Yakuza game. The Skill Scholar says, Phil. Yes. That's all he said, Phil. So, yes. Am I a dog or cat person? Well, I love having a cat. Jasper is an amazing pet and friend and companion. But I've never had a dog. So I honestly don't know. From what I'm to understand, dogs are a lot more work, but also people love dogs too. So I don't know if I would like a dog or not. I'm not sure. What I would hope is once I start playing newer games like Dragon's Dogma 2, which everyone's asking for, all right, and other variety, like I think like Alone in the Dark or some action-based games, like I said, like maybe bringing back some Street Fighter, whether it's new or old, maybe some Battlefront, maybe bringing back Elden Ring to continue on with that run so we get ready for the DLC. Once we get that variety back on the streams, we'll be good. The problem is there's no variety. It's literally the same games over and over, and people are tired of these games. 130 hours almost into Baldur's Gate 3 and over 50 hours into Like a Dragon. People want a change, and I hear that. I hear your cries for change, but the problem is I've played games that are too long. Like I definitely said, I just cannot play games as long as Baldur's Gate 3 very often. Maybe once every few years, we delve into a game this long. But I cannot play games this long all the time. I can't. They kill the channel. They really do. Do I have any childhood or baby pictures to show on stream? I don't have any of them. My parents do. They have all the photo albums and stuff, and I'm sure I'm going to inherit those one day. Maybe we'll look at them together, but I don't have them actively here. I received another $10 tip, also from 1 Minute Man. Wow, thank you, 1 Minute Man. I appreciate that. He says, my take on the JKB story, if you don't know what he's talking about, this is this Jay Hoofed guy, the former editor of Review Tech USA, who I guess is going to get gotten into a spat with him and supposedly wanted to have me on just like a quick show for like a chill stream or something. And then I guess he's bipolar or something because he says something publicly that literally didn't happen in the talks we had. If you want the skinny on that, I made a video about it yesterday. You can check it out. It's right here on the channel, featured video too. He says, if a random person tells you that Joe Biden wants to come to your stream, would you believe them? If someone wants to come on your stream, they should contact you, not some random person. Even if they did, you would have to quadruple check if the request is real. This was a real life perception check and you shouldn't fail it. But the truth is he wanted that. Like, I guess what had happened was Jay has this split with Rich and he's doing his own streams now and people are actually paying attention to the guy now because they're like, haha, you know, it's drama, right? I guess he had said on his streams, yeah, I would like to just have like a chill stream or conversation with Darkside Phil because that's someone that Rich craps on all the time. So it would be surreal to actually have a conversation with the guy, you know, because Rich never has, you know. And so this guy, Ones to Sense, who was on my streams over the weekend, had presented this opportunity. He says, I'm actually someone who I work with Jay all the time, and he's expressed interest in talking with you. Would you consider it? I said, I'm open to just a conversation about anything, gaming or whatever, something positive. That's cool, you know? And that's how it was presented. This wasn't an interview. This wasn't an interrogation. It has nothing to do with me. It's just talking about games and life and stuff like that. It was supposed to be casual and fun. And I'm like, that sounds like a plan. So I DM'd him and we had a conversation back and forth that was literally to that effect. Don't talk about drama. Don't talk about Rich at all. Let's just have a conversation as two gamers and two YouTubers and have a good time. And we were actually talking specifics of how to set that up. He had wanted to do a talk beforehand, like on the phone or something, to lay out the specifics of how we were going to make it happen, because I don't know how we would even do that. Like, how, if we were to do it, would we co-stream it where we both stream our perspectives? Or would it be only on one of our channels? Would it be an offline thing we do and record and we each upload, which we could have done that too? Like, I have no idea. And I think that's what we were supposed to talk about. And the next thing I know, Jay is tweeting, oh, well, the whole DSP thing, I only entertained it because he reached out to me and he's never going to have a serious interview and talk about the important topics. He's just like everyone says. So I'm like, wait, what? Like, literally nothing you're tweeting about is anything we ever discussed. You said you wanted to have a casual conversation with me. That wasn't drama. That was positive. You didn't say anything about an interview. You didn't say anything about questions or nothing. It was supposed to be us just hanging out, which I'm totally open to. Why did you fucking tweet all that on Twitter? Like, it has nothing to do with the conversation we're literally having in DMs right now. So the moment that I see that, that's it for me, you know? Like, I hate to say it, but the guy feels like he's two different personalities. And on the one hand, he says one thing, and then on the other hand, he's acting like a completely different thing happened that didn't. You know? So I don't understand it. It completely blows my mind. I'm like, well, whatever. And here's the thing. I'm done with it then, right? If that's the case, I already know I can't trust this person. So what's the point? You want to know my honest take on it is this. This is a guy who worked for Rich for a while, right? He literally has his hands and his mind in this kind of drama sphere, not detractor, but like TMZ style content. This is what he did for a long time because he was paid to do it for Rich. He's ingrained in it, right? He's probably all about it, and he probably wants to continue it. So that's why he has that mindset. He probably already has this weird misconception about me because of all the stuff that Rich has said and done about me. So he's already got this mindset, and he's not willing to have an open mind and just have a conversation with me, apparently. Like, here's the fun part about all of this, right? People think that, like, I'm not a normal person who's capable of, like, a conversation. Why? Just because I don't have it publicly on a stream doesn't mean I'm not capable of having a conversation. I was so blown away that he reached out and talked to me. Why? Like, what? That was another funny thing too. Like, with the whole Mike Klum documentary, the way that I got introduced to Mike Klum is the weirdest story. It wasn't, he didn't reach out to me, someone else did. All right, I'm not gonna tell the whole story because I don't know if it's even something that should be public. But basically, another YouTuber reached out to me and said, hey, would you be willing to work with Mike Klum on a documentary? And I was like, why are you reaching out to me? Right? Oh, well, because, we wanted to make sure that you get that you paid attention to this or whatever. You're a hard guy to reach. I was like, I'm not a hard guy to reach at all. You can email me. You can DM me. All this stuff is available. The problem is people have this weirdo misconceptions about me that just aren't true. Just because I don't actively do talking with people on my streams doesn't mean that I don't talk to people. Right? Like, what are you talking about? It's just wild what people say and the shit they make up. So it's like some big deal. Someone comes on my stream and says, hey, this guy Jay might want to have a chill conversation with you. I'm actually down for that because that's the kind of guy I am. I'll talk about games. We'll talk about news. We'll talk about whatever, right? I'm okay with that. In fact, the least drama, the better. Like I said, I don't even want to talk about Review Tech USA because that's just drama to me. The guy's always treated me badly, and I have no desire to discuss that man. But if you want to talk about the state of gaming, you want to talk about life in general, what it's like to be a YouTuber, all this kind of stuff that I can relate to, I'd be down for that conversation. But guess what? No one wants to have that conversation with me. All they want to do is create drama to get views and clickbait and make money on my name. So that's it. I mean, Jay probably thought, oh, on the guise of a casual conversation, but then try to lure it into drama. I don't want drama. There's no point in talking about your drama that you fabricated to begin with, or you're following fabricated drama from other people. I have no reason to discuss any of this. What are you talking about? So, right? It's weird to me. Here's the truth. I wish people on the fucking internet were normal. A lot of them are not. A lot of them, everything, at least look at my experiences in the last year. Everyone is out to make a buck off of my name. However they can do that, and usually that's drag Phil through dirt, right? So let's have Phil as a guest on our show. Oh, wait a minute. We realized this guy's going to be a cash cow because a lot of people don't like him on the internet. So let's say we're going to do an interview, right? But then turn that interview into a 3-ring circus that we'll milk for content for 2 months, and then also continue to do defamatory streams about him so that we can make tons of money on him, right? Oh, by the way, also drop the original offer to have him as a guest on our show anyway. Like, what the fuck? All I wanted to do was be a guest on the show because they offered it, and it would have given me some exposure to a new audience. Instead, I've become a villain again on the internet for a bunch of bullshit that I'm not involved in. Oh, let's have Phil as a chill guest, and we'll have a fun conversation with him about life and gaming. Oh, well, you see, Phil didn't want to do a serious interview about the serious topics that he's accused of, so he's never going to want to do that. So, he's just like everyone says. What are you talking about? What the fuck is wrong with you? No, really, what the fuck is wrong with you? You got problems up here. You do. You're out of your fucking mind. Not everything in life is meant to be something to personally gain from, right? You're out of you're insane to say stuff like, to act like that. You're fucked up, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense at all, right? This is just hilarious to me because people, by the way, message me and talk to me all the time, email me all the time. How is there a conception on the internet that I'm hard to reach? What, because fucking Keemstar said it? He's a fucking liar. He's a liar. He made it up on purpose to create more drama and content for him. Stop believing idiots. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's fucking ridiculous. Okay. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. Like I said, I'm done with it. I blocked Jay. I'm not talking to him ever again. There's no point. That's it. Like, I gave him the one chance. I tried to be nice and immediately get stabbed in the back and treated like dirt. Well, fuck you. I'm done with you. Never deal with you ever again. Move on with my life. I got shit going on for myself. I don't have to worry about you, right? Highest Darkness says, I think this mentality is common. People don't have common fundamental values like they used to. People just don't have a moral compass anymore, right? Like, it used to be, if you did something that hurt someone, even if you benefited from it, somehow you feel bad about it. Now it's like people just don't care anymore. I will say and do whatever I want. I will destroy people around me. I will step on them to get ahead. And no one seems to feel anything bad about that whatsoever. And it drives me bonkers because there's an entire genre of content on YouTube made like this. And I don't know how it's allowed to exist. If you want valid advertisers to come to your site, if you want people to actually buy your products, right? Sponsors, why would you promote that kind of content? All that kind of content does is create toxicity and it harms people. So why would you advertise and pay for it? If anything, that content should be completely demonetized on YouTube. Therefore, these idiots won't do it anymore because the only reason they do it is because they get popular doing it and then they make tons of money. So fucking stop supporting the toxicity and it'll go away, right? But instead, it seems like YouTube promotes it. YouTube pushes it with its algorithms forward, and all you can find is the toxic content. You can't even find the positive content anymore. Like, why did they do that? They're idiotic. Did they not realize that their site would be much better with positive content pushed to the forefront and allowing that to get the advertisement and that to get the promotions and stuff? Like, it doesn't make sense at all. The way that they've done it. It's they keep shooting themselves in the foot with this shit, And why? Then you get everyone copycatting. It started with guys like Keemstar, and then you get the copycats like Rich, and then you get the copycats of the copycats, and it's just going to continue forever, and YouTube will continue to get worse. A lot of people say, that I'm outdated, I'm a dinosaur, because I stick to an old era of YouTube content creation style. You're right. You're absolutely right. I don't want to ever be pulled into a vortex like this, a drama vortex of, oh, you see? Well, this is good that Phil brought me up today because now I can milk that for a video view. I can make a video about it and get clickbait and stuff. It's like, I didn't want to make that video yesterday about Jay. I don't care about the guy, but everyone kept coming on my streams and asking me. And I said, well, I'll just do it now. That way my statement's out and I don't have to bring it up anymore, right? Stupid. I don't want to waste time on that shit. And that's why I'm happy that I did it that way, because then people won't come on my gameplay streams and ask me about it because it's already taken care of, right? It's just awful. I hate it. I fucking hate all of that shit, you know? Of all the things you can accuse me of over the years, right? You can say my bad behavior back in the day with my commentary, which was way, irresponsible and offensive. And then you can say, at one point, Phil thought his shit didn't stink. He was really cocky and egotistical and all of that. When This Is How You Don't Play happened, when he had falling out with various people during those years and all that, he was a real piece of shit, right? I will agree with all of that. All of that negative criticism I will take and say, you're right. And that's why I've really worked hard in the last many years to change myself as a person, right? I've tried to become a better person. I understand now that I'm a fallible human who makes lots of mistakes. I try to take feedback. I try to improve. And I hope that you've seen that improvement that I've worked for over the last several years. But the one thing that I can always say, all right, is that in all the years that I've been a content creator, I never had to step on other people to get where I was. I never actively hurt anyone to do what I do and make a living or to get any kind of popularity, right? I mean, even as much as you'll watch back and you watch, that video of John Rambo and Howard kind of crapping on me, what you'll always hear John say is that I was fair with pay because I didn't want to step on someone or crap on someone or ruin someone's reputation or whatever. I wanted everyone to come up with me. You understand? So I never really wanted to feel like, oh, Phil just used us as a ride or whatever. No one's going to say that. But I didn't. In fact, I did no collaborations. I did no screw jobs. None of that exists ever, right? At all. And that's a good thing, right? That I can go back and look at my history and say, even though I've made all these mistakes and all these things I've done wrong, did I really hurt anyone in the process, right? Did I have any awful things that I did to people around me that really makes me be categorized in line with a lot of these other people? Right? I would hope that when all things are said and done at the end of the day, people will look and say, wow, he made an insane amount of content that made people laugh. Didn't make people point fingers and yell and get angry and toxic with people. He didn't defame people all day. He just made people laugh. And that's a good thing because that content will still be there for years to come to be watched. You know what I'm saying? Like, all that's the good thing. I never really hurt anyone doing it. It's positive, funny content as opposed to I literally sat here every day hurting people to make a living. I don't ever have to do that. I have no desire to do that, And that's why, in this case with Jay, I'm telling the truth because what I have to lie for. I don't benefit by making someone else look bad. That's not my content. That's not what I want my content to be, right? So I'm telling the truth about the situation because I have nothing to gain from it by lying at all. Anyway, all right. I guess that's it for today. We're out of time, so let's end the stream and get into Baldur's Gate 3, shall we? All right. So thank you all. By the way, happy spring. It is officially spring now for a day here in Washington State, and now we have cooler weather again, which is hilarious. We had summer weather over the weekend, and now that it's spring, the weather's cooler. Figure that one out. But it is cooler today. I'm enjoying this right now. And I thank you all for chilling with me here today for the Level 1 podcast. And I hope that you will stick around for Baldur's Gate. But if not, as always, I wish you a safe and happy Thursday. I will not be here. I will come back on Friday to probably have a lot to talk about. I feel like there'll be like gaming news and all stuff to talk about. And of course, a big premiere day of Dragon's Dogma 2. Thank you all. See you Friday. Peace out.